Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
At Capella University, we believe accessible education can make a difference in people's lives. That's why we offer scholarship opportunities to all eligible students. Whether you're considering a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, our teams will walk you through the process and help you get the savings you're eligible for. Furthering your education is an investment in yourself. Entonces, ¿qué estás esperando? Un futuro diferente está más cerca de lo que crees con Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Doogie.
Sam.
Welcome to 2025. A whole nother year. And you know what? There are some who are starting to get the feeling that this could be Atletico Madrid's year. Let's explore why.
Atleti, hey, low-key, they can win it. They might win it.
Griezmann turns. Griezmann!
That's it.
94th minute. Antoine Griezmann comes up with the 7th goal of this thrilling night. And Atleti are in front.
We're halfway through La Liga, and considering what the outset looked like at the beginning of the season, what the conversation looked like, all of a sudden it feels like we've been thrust into another Simeone season.
Molina with the cross. It will reach Cholo, and they've stolen it in the last minute. Atletico Madrid.
Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode of The Truth for 2025. It is a pleasure to have you with us. I am your host, Sam Ty. Joining me is my co-host, Doogie Critchley. Hello, Doogie.
Hello, Sam. Yes, Happy New Year. I'm excited for 2025. Let's get it.
Any New Year's resolutions for you?
I'm trying to give up biting my fingernails. It was my dream and my ambition for 2024. Failed miserably. So that is what I'm carrying over to 2025.
Fantastic. And hello to our Voice of God producer, Jack Collins.
Hello, Sam. How you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, buddy. Have you got any New Year's resolutions?
I'm trying to improve my Portuguese. We did these on ranks a couple of weeks ago.
I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, no, this has been chaos. But I'm trying to improve the social media output of Ranks FC.
Okay.
And
oh yes, I do remember that.
And then also improve my Portuguese to a level where I feel comfortable speaking it.
Did I give any New Year's resolutions?
I don't think so.
Given that I can't remember anything.
No,
it's
I don't
time
think
now.
Because I do have one now.
Come on.
So I'd like to go to more games this year. 2024 was a bit of a bleak one for me in terms of actually going to stadiums, and obviously my newborn son was to blame. So he's one now, old enough to fend for himself. He will shortly be moving out.
Or?
No, he'll just be moving out and getting a job, I assume. I don't know when exactly that happens, but it will be quite soon, I think. And so that will free up my time to go back to stadiums. I genuinely think I went to 3 games in 2024, which is really poor, but extenuating circumstances. Be there for your son and your family and all that. Anyway, this week
I've been to 3 games already this year.
Yeah, that's the thing. You were at Boa Vista the other night, and I was like, man, he started off on such a strong foot. Well done to you.
Doesn't mess around.
Even though that Boa Vista game looked bleak as hell.
It was bleak as hell, and I've started the last 2 years at the Bessa. It's become a bit of a tradition. I might not be able to go to the Bessa next year because I have got a funny feeling that Boa Vista might not exist, which is incredibly sad. Watching the death of a football club in real time is incredibly bleak.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm comfortable with the idea that 2026 might not start at the Bessa at this point.
get in touch on behalf of Ranks and see if you can stimulate the economy over there. See what you can do.
I'll do my best.
Bit of a call to arms. Anyway, this week we're talking Atletico Madrid. And if you thought that Atalanta, who we recently spoke about, were on a roll, then wow, Atleti are on an even better run. It is quite clearly an amazing time to be a football club whose name begins with A. Absolutely brilliant. So, Atleti have won 13 games in a row. They're second in La Liga, but they're only 2 points off Real Madrid, having played a game fewer. So, at the halfway stage, they're in a really powerful position, and on the points per game table, they are top. Doogie, this isn't just good, this is great.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's a good time to do this topic as well, because La Liga returns this weekend. And the Spanish footballing authorities have orchestrated the schedule quite cleverly to allow the winners and runners-up of La Liga and the Copa del Rey to compete for the Spanish Super Cup, which is going on this week. As you listen to this on Friday, hopefully on Friday, you'll know who's in the final. But as we record this, Athletic Club take on Barcelona, Real Madrid are against Mallorca. They've already played 19 league games. Atleti have played 18. So this weekend is their game in hand on their rivals. And it's massively important because as it stands, Atleti are second. They are 2 points behind Real Madrid and 3 ahead of a crumbling Barcelona. Their game in hand is against Osasuna on Sunday. And Sam, I know you're not one to write off teams, but you should definitely not write off Osasuna, because they sit 10th in the table at the moment.
I felt very targeted.
Yeah, but they have beaten Barcelona 4-2 at home. They've beaten Real Sociedad 2-0 away, and they've drawn with Villarreal. They are being fired forward by Ante Budimir, who has 10 league goals. He's level with Mbappe. And only Yamal and Rafinha have provided more assists than Brian Zaragoza, who is rebuilding his career. Yes, exactly.
Granada legend.
Former Granada legend.
No, Granada legend.
Granada legend. Okay, I correct myself.
Former... haven't won in 6.
That's not important.
But do not underestimate them for sure. And Atleti are in a brilliant position. As you say, they, have been on this crazy winning run. Their most recent game was a 2-1 win away at Barcelona, which was Simeone's first away win against the Blaugrana in his 13-year tenure, which blew my mind.
Well, it is a tough place to go.
For sure. But they were pretty fortunate in that game. Barcelona created 3.4 XG to their 0.7, but they won 2-1, which is all that matters.
You watch the highlights and it's like Barca should be 3 or 4 up by the time Atleti have got a sniff on goal.
For sure. But the result leaves Atleti in a brilliant position. If they beat Osasuna at the weekend, the hopes of a third league title of the Simeone reign look a little bit closer.
Yeah, I don't want to pick at the winning run too much, because at the end of the day, if you win 13 games in a row, you've done extremely well. But 3 of these are, just going to rationalise it a little bit, 3 of these are in the Copa del Rey, where obviously you start right at the start of the competition. Even the big guns are in, and they play some very, very low-ranked teams. So in Atleti's case, they've played a team called UE Vic, a team called Cacereño, and Marbella. And they made a meal of that one, just about squeezed past Marbs, 1-0 away from home. Maybe the island life was a bit of a distraction, who knows. 3 of these have also been in the Champions League, and 2 of those were against Sparta Prague and Slovan Bratislava. And the vast majority of these La Liga wins have come against bottom half teams.
Yeah.
However, they beat Barca, they beat PSG, and regardless of opponent strength, they scored 11 goals in 4 days at one point in December and conceded 0. That has to be commended. So as much as I've just tried to rip that 13-game win streak apart, it's still 13 wins, and you can only beat what's in front of you. They've done incredibly well. Doogie, I get the feeling, well, I'm going to ask you the question, what has set them up for this? And I'm essentially offering you an open invitation to talk about the summer, because I know that's what you like to do.
I'm going to smash in that open goal and talk about the summer, because Atleti needed a big summer. Like, they have had, in no uncertain terms, like a really disappointing by their standards last few seasons. So since winning the league in 2021, they finished third, and fourth, which was also behind Girona last year. Their points tallies have gone from 86 in their title-winning campaign to 71, 77 and 76. Their goals against tally, Simeone's at least initial Atleti sides, really built off an amazing defence, best in Europe for years and years. Their goals against tally has gone from 25 in that title-winning campaign to 43, 33, big improvement, but then back up to 43. And the last time they conceded more than 43 in a campaign was in 2011-12, which was the year that Simeone took over mid-season. They've also been Prior to this year, pretty terrible in the Champions League as well. So the year they won La Liga, they were knocked out in the last 16 by Chelsea. That was Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea. They went on to win the competition. No disaster there. The next year, they lost 1-0 to Man City in the quarterfinals. But then in 22-23, they finished bottom of a Champions League group with Porto, Club Brugge and Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen now a top side. Sergio Conceição's FC Porto always fared pretty well in the Champions League, but that's not a particularly difficult group.
I remember that it was a very even group, and like it was always someone was going to have to miss out. But the thing is, it was no surprise that it was them, because for such a long time it had become established that Atletico Madrid, away from home in the Champions League, were basically useless. You could not trust them to do anything away from home in the Champions League, and it was just one of those things that they needed to correct at some point, and it's good to see them somewhat doing that this season.
100%. I mean, last year it looked promising. They went unbeaten in a group with Lazio, Feyenoord and Celtic. They then knocked out Inter Milan on penalties. Inter Milan runners-up the year before. And then they get beaten 5-4 by Dortmund in the quarterfinals. They lost the second leg in Dortmund 4-2.
There was such a commanding position there in the first leg. Yeah.
Horrible. And there has been so much change from that title-winning season. Obviously, that most recent title-winning season was all about one man. It was all about Luis Suarez. He scored 21 goals in 32 games. He had one more year at the club, then left for Nacional. Players like Savic, Hermoso, Trippier, who was crucial that year as well. Carrasco had an amazing year. Felipe, Saúl, who were bit part players, but they've all left the club.
We're just dudes naming old footballers now. Absolutely. And having the best time.
But of their 11 most used players, only Oblak, Koke, Llorente and Correa remain from that year. And of their major arrivals since, there's been Rodrigo de Paul, Cunha, who's now at Wolves, Griezmann, who signed initially on loan, Naul Molina, and then Griezmann permanently. So prior to this summer, they'd only spent a net £12.9 million in the preceding 6 windows. So they did have a bit of a kitty which had expanded. And boy, did they go for it. It was a huge outlay of £75.5 million, which has only been topped by 2 other clubs in an entire season, twice in the post-COVID period, which was Real Madrid when they spent 132 million in 23-24. That was the summer they brought Bellingham, and Barcelona when they spent 98 million in 22-23 as well.
So is that a net figure?
That's a net figure, sorry. Yeah, the year they bought Rafinha, Koundé and Lewandowski. So Atleti went big in the summer. Who did they bring in? Julian Alvarez was the most well-known name, let's say. £82 million, huge fee. We'll probably get into whether City should have accepted that at various points in this podcast, but it was a big commitment. But this is a 24-year-old Argentinian that had won the World Cup. He'd won 2 Copa Americas. He'd had an amazing Premier League year last year. He got 19 goals and 13 assists in all competitions, that was. He was their 5th most used player in the league. Only Haaland and Foden contributed more than his 11 league goals. Only Kevin De Bruyne provided more than his 10 assists. He had a great year. In comes Conor Gallagher as well, another peak age Premier League player who has got so much tenacity, so much aggression, so much legs. The things that defined...
How many legs has he got?
He's got multiple legs. He's got a serious heart is what he's got. It just keeps on going and going. And yeah, this is another player, £34 million, brought in his prime. And although Chelsea have moved on really successfully from Conor Gallagher, it shouldn't go unnoticed that he did have a very good campaign for Chelsea last year.
He was great.
He was really good. 12 league goals and assists. He ranked high for shots, passes completed, chances created, top of defensive actions in this Chelsea squad. He was crucial. Also arrives Robin Normand, £28 million. 28 years old, he'd made 40 plus appearances for Real Sociedad in the last 4 seasons. The sort of signing you expected to hit the ground running. He's had injury issues, but knows the league. Really good, astute signing as well. Alexander Sorloth comes in as well, £26 million, 29 years old. This is a win now player. You know, he scored 16 goals in 46 games for Sociedad in 22-23, 26 goals in 41 games last year for Villarreal. That was only topped by Dovbyk in La Liga last year.
The weirdest Pichichi race of all time.
Very
Dovbyk
strange
against
indeed.
Surloth.
Yeah, nothing has summed up the Messi and Ronaldo post-period more. Yeah. Also, bit part players like Juan Musso arrive. That kind of maybe invigorates Jan Oblak, who's been up and down a little bit in the last few years. Clement Lenglet arrived from Barcelona. Good squad player to have. So what we saw in the summer was a club that hadn't spent a lot in the preceding windows, that had a disappointing last few seasons, really invest in this team. And it's made a big difference, Sam.
It has, yes. I think we'll just add as well that they managed to, in terms of where they found this money from, obviously you get plenty of prize money from the Champions League and they went reasonably far. I think they got some investment, but what was also massively important here is that reportedly they cleared £40 million worth of wages in terms of annual wages from Soyuncu, Memphis Depay, Saul Niguez, Morata, Hermoso, and Vitolo. Vitolo?
Still there.
It's
Wow.
only just left. I mean, so we talk about like clubs and how they get bogged down on the wage bill, and it really restricts their ability to move. And I'll draw the parallel straight away to Man United, who are clearly suffering from wage bill concerns. How long did it take them to get rid of Anthony Martial? Now they're stuck with, Marcus Rashford's wage. These big wage packets, they can really hinder a club. And I feel like Atleti had been weighed down by quite a lot of these. Saul Niguez's wage, do you remember when he signed that big deal? It's a huge contract. It was like a 9-year, 200 grand a week, whatever. Depay would have been on quite a lot. Morata was on a lot. Hermoso was on a lot, and when you sign a player on a free transfer, and they did do a lot of free transfers in the preceding 3 or 4 years, as you said, low net spend, but a lot of free transfers, pump the wages up. Mm-hmm. So in clearing all of this out, and obviously getting a fee for Morata, a fee for Soyuncu, a good fee for Joao Felix, albeit in basically a swap deal for Conor Gallagher, and not as much as they were hoping for Samu Omorodian, but still 15 million for 50% of him. They paved their own path here to spend a bit more money than usual. And that's who they ended up signing. Alvarez, Gallagher, Lenormand, Sørloth, Longley and Musso. And it's looking like a good haul. They're all playing a part. Before we go on to kind of like how they actually play, I just want to ask this question because I don't know if we actually are going to have an answer, but I found it intriguing to roll around my mind. Was this just simply a natural point to reload and have a crack? And it just so happened that with those wages cleared, they were like, why not? Why not? Why not make it a big summer? Let's go for it. Or do you think they sensed an opportunity and picked their moment? Because on paper, this didn't feel like the moment. Real Madrid had just signed Kylian Mbappe and Barcelona have Lamine Yamal blossoming. On paper, it's not the time to go for it. And yet they have. So was it just coincidental?
I think they were probably a bit embarrassed by finishing fourth. I think they were probably a bit embarrassed by a club that had sort of established themselves as maybe not a really elite Champions League club, but, finals in 2014, finals in 2016 as well, losing on penalties in both of those. Like they were really close to doing something quite special. Yeah. I think the Champions League form would have really hurt them as well. And then it's interesting you say that about maybe not the moment, but Girona had just lost Jan Couto, they'd lost Dovbyk, Savio, Alex Garcia. That club didn't look like they were going to be able to replicate what they were again. Real Madrid had lost Cruz. Maybe they saw that as an opportunity. Barcelona under new management. And for so long, it felt like that age of the squad had really ticked over into quite dangerous territory as well. And players like Axel Witsel and Azpilicueta still playing fairly regularly even last year. I felt like it really did need a big refresh. I was just impressed by the calibre of players they were able to attract, because for Julian Alvarez in particular to go from a title-winning Man City side that had won the treble the year before and kind of not risk it at Atleti, but it's not a guarantee of trophies to the same extent as City, I thought was a really good get from them. And so far, after a slowish start, we'll get into it, he's proved like a pretty good addition in the last few months.
He's just that perfect crosshatch player, isn't he, for Diego Simeone, where he's basically, if not an elite or world-class footballer in terms of the attacking bracket, then pretty close and will end up there. And also a devilishly hard worker. And, for Simeone to thrive under him, you need to be really, really good and that kind of player.
And can play in multiple positions.
And can play in like 5 different positions. It's just perfect for Simeone. And I think actually that's probably the theme of the signings. Lenormand is, he's been very unfortunate with a very serious concussion brain injury this season. But before that, ultra durable, 40 plus appearances. He was an Iron Man in one La Liga campaign in the last three years or so. Hard as nails, very durable. Gallagher, workhorse, absolute workhorse. Alvarez, very talented, but also an absolute workhorse. Sørloth, big, burly. It all follows a very familiar pattern for Simeone, which is great because how they set up and how they play is pretty typical Simeone. Like they started the season in the back three, but it didn't take them very long to move basically to a 4-4-2 that sort of shifts round into a 4-3-3 when it needs to, which is what some of the best Atleti teams in the recent history of the last 10 years have done, with Griezmann being the protagonist moving from the centre to the wide spot and out again. Only this time it's Giuliano Simeone, his son.
Amazing. I mean, it's quite rare for children of footballers to be as good as their dads, particularly from the 1990s onwards, because obviously when the 1990 wages started massively improving, they don't, a lot of these children of footballers have enormously privileged lives. They probably don't have the same hunger as their parents, etc. So for Simeone to effectively create, I would say, two pretty top level footballers in their own right, in Giovanni at Napoli and Giuliano at Atleti, that's really, really promising. Fair play to him. And he's made a huge difference off the bench in recent weeks as well.
You can't say that to Sam. He cannot stand the other Simeone brother.
Oh, really?
He just doesn't believe he's any good. He's wrong, let's just be clear.
He's fine.
But he's definitely a perfectly capable footballer. Sam doesn't like strikers who score goals. This is the thing.
We have established this, right? And Gio Simeone is just... He's just dreadful, isn't he?
He's not dreadful. This is your take.
Anyway,
we're not here to talk about Gio Simeone. We're here to talk about Giuliano Simeone.
Yes.
Do you like him?
He's all right. But he's more than just that. He's been his right-sided link-up with Marcos Llorente recently has been really, really strong. And the dovetailing and the way he comes into the attack, the way he breaks into the box, obviously underpinned by the work rate. It's very Atleti, and I find myself really pulling for it. That Gallagher's playing sort of left mid, but not really, and then tucking into the centre. And we've also got little storylines like Rodrigo de Paul, who has kind of been a bit of a misfit ever since signing. He should have been the answer, and he just wasn't for 3 years. And now it's kind of starting to look like he actually is the answer.
Yeah. More haircuts than goals.
And Simeone is really... He's not only trusting him, but he's name-checking him as a key piece of the team. You've got the rise of Pablo Barrios here, who is, in the last month, basically kind of nicked Koke's spot in the team, which is not easy to do. And they've been able to battle the fact that Lenormand has been absent for 2 months, to my immense surprise, with the fact that Clément Lenglet is not as bad as I thought he was. And they just find answers. And, when they don't need to play that kind of more reactive 4-4-2 with the centre mid tucking in to make a 4-3-3 like a Gallagher, they can just go with the two wingers. So Simeone on the right side, and then you bring Samuel Lino in on the left. I love Lino.
He's brilliant, yeah.
He's so exciting. And he's one of those players, and you don't actually get that many of them anymore, that could literally just do anything at any moment. And it will probably be quite good. And against weaker teams, like watching the game back this week in preparation for this, watching the Getafe game, watching the Real Valladolid game, they don't need to play Conor Gallagher as the safety midfielder. They can just go with the two wingers and the two strikers and just go at the throat. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's tactically flexible and variable. It's that's great to see. And again, that's one of those staples of a Simeone side. We can be really nasty if we need to be, but we can also run you over and win 5-0, which they have done.
Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
At Capella University, we believe accessible education can make a difference in people's lives. That's why we offer scholarship opportunities to all eligible students. Whether you're considering a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, our teams will walk you through the process and help you get the savings you're eligible for. Furthering your education is an investment in yourself. Entonces, ¿qué estás esperando? Un futuro diferente está más cerca de lo que crees con Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
And after a big summer outlay, it would have been easy to sort of panic in the first few weeks of the season because they got off to a fairly slow start. I mean, they weren't losing a lot of games, obviously, but they only won 4 of their opening 9, although they did draw their other 5.
It's not good enough, though, is it?
It's not great when you've spent that amount of money. And then they lost 1-0 to Real Betis away from home in their 11th game. That was on the 27th of October. And at that moment, they were 4th. They were 2 points ahead of 8th. They were 10 behind Barcelona. And look, partly of what's gone on in La Liga this year is this huge drop-off of Barcelona. But also, Atleti's form can't be underestimated. 7 straight wins in Atleti. As you said at the start of the podcast, 5 of those were against sides ranked 13th or below. But they've shown so much spirit as well. So in their first half of goals... for goals versus goals conceded tally, it's 10-9. In the second half tally, it's 23-3.
Yeah.
Madness. And they scored 14 goals between minutes 76 and 90 and conceded 1 in the final 15 minutes or so. And that is the best in Europe's top 5 leagues. Lazio are next on 13 and Bayern 12, who have so much firepower from the bench barn in the Bundesliga. But Atleti, that is so much spirit. And the key man who's been coming off the bench, who doesn't seem to mind the fact that he's a bench player, is Alexander Sørloth. He's only started 7 league games, but he's come on in 11, and listen to this for a run of form. Against Las Palmas, he comes on in the 64th minute. He scores in the 83rd minute to seal a 2-0 win. Against Alvarez, again, neither of these two sides are top sides, but either way...
Did Alvarez just beat Barcelona?
Well, yeah. They come on 1-0 down at home to Alvarez. He comes on at half-time, scores the winner. Against Real Valladolid, 26 minutes off the bench, he scores. Getafe at home, on at half-time, scores the winner. You get the pattern here. Barcelona away, plays the final 17 minutes, scores the winner. He's scored 8 league goals now, and the only player to score more in Europe's top 5 leagues and play fewer minutes is Patrick Schick, who scored 4 in a game against Freiburg just before Christmas. So Sørloth is now averaging a goal every 97 minutes. It's a crazy run.
That makes him better than John Duran. Damn it.
Yeah, I mean, the absolute anger in your face. I don't know if either of you have read it, but there's a brilliant piece on this from Sid Lowe in The Guardian. And he was basically talking about the fact that Sørloth had basically been frustrated with his lack of starts in the season. I think the original plan was to pair Sørloth with Alvarez and kind of phase Antoine Griezmann out of the team. Now, Griezmann's been absolutely sublime.
Mate, some of the goals he scored.
Yeah, so that hasn't quite worked. But actually, one of the things that was really interesting about the piece was that Sid Lowe said that he interviewed Sørloth about this and talked to him about it. And he said, well, one of the things that Simeone did was he sat me down and said, look, I don't necessarily foresee you starting that many games. That doesn't mean I don't think you have a role to play. It doesn't mean that I think your role is any less than other players. I'm not going to be giving you 5 minutes at the end of games. I'm going to give you 20, 30 minute stints in which to make a difference. And I believe that you are the kind of player that can impact games. And that buy-in that he's kind of gone, he said, look, we can sit here and we can hate each other all year and I can sell you at the end of the year if you want. And that's, the most Simeone thing ever, right? He's like, or we can work this out as a role. I will endeavour, if you perform, which he is doing, I will endeavour to get you minutes as much as I can. But I think that it's about utilising what we have. And he's developed a pretty devastating partnership with Angel Correa, who is, Mr. off the bench in some ways for this Atleti side.
He knows that arrangement well.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the fact that they can bring on Sørloth and Correa together as a pair, and they often substitute them at the same time for Griezmann and Alvarez, it's become like a trick in the book. And it's not just fresh legs. That is completely changing your game plan late on to attack defences in a different way.
So this is like the starters finishers conversation, is it? It's the Alessia Russo complex that Sabrina Wiegmann did so well to kind of introduce and change our perceptions, I think, a little bit of substitutes, which is really impressive. And subs is actually where I want to go next, because Atletico Madrid use subs unlike any other team, basically. I've got some stats. I'll try to read them out as proficiently as possible. But they are from the start of December and the middle of December. So things would have changed ever so slightly, but it will give you a picture. 63.7% of Atletico's total minutes played this season in the league have been played by the 10 most used outfield players. So it's the second lowest tally in La Liga of concentrated minutes between starters. Mm-hmm. At the other end of the scale, 84.9% of Barca's minutes have been played by 10 players. Wow. In simple terms, that means Atleti are rotating loads, and they're using subs loads, and they're using subs early. They're getting more players, lots of minutes, and Barcelona are not. And you talked about a very, very quick start for Barca and a slow start for Atleti, and those lines have kind of crossed each other on the graph, and this is possibly part of the reason why. And to frame it even further, and to make it even more simple, Atleti have 21 players who have played 400 La Liga minutes or more this season. Barca have 14. Wow. Again, share the minutes out. And this is a measure of methods. This is rotation against a fixed team thing, and it's an exercise in Atleti using subs very, very liberally. And one of the things I picked up on in researching this was a couple of really rave reviews for the new fitness coach they have.
Okay.
I love it when this happens. So,
the old fitness coach had quite the reputation. So this is going to be something. Yeah.
Was that Herman Burgos? Or was that...
who made everyone do all of the running all of the time? Everybody hated.
The subs warming up on the sideline, dodging spiked bats. So this guy is called Luis Pinedo, and he is getting some seriously good reviews. he and Diego Simeone apparently sat down at the start of the season and said, look, the schedule is horrendous. We're all complaining about too much football, too much load on players. Look at how many minutes they have to play. Why wouldn't we use the whole squad? We have to share these minutes out. And so between them, they seem to have come to an agreement on how to use players a bit more sparingly and when to bring them in for each other. And actually, it's had a massive impact on Atleti have very few injuries. So a tweet from Atletico Universe mid-December said that at this point last year, they'd suffered 20 injuries. This year, they have 8. They've chopped their injury list by over 50%. And of course, their PPDA, our favourite stat, passes allowed per defensive action. Barca right at the top, 7.07. Atletico, second lowest in La Liga, 14.61. So one of the more passive approaches to defending, as is pretty typical of Simeone. So really good mixture of rotation here and saving legs, which is, Barca start the season super quick, fixed team. Of course, you've got the fluency, you've got those connections. Atleti probably muddling their way through a new squad, a new build, and heavy rotation and heavy use of subs. No wonder it took 9 games. But since then, basically since October, they've been amazing, absolutely amazing. And this looks like a massive part of why. And that, of course, brings us back to the late goals. You said 14 goals between 75...
14-1.
So is that in La Liga?
In La Liga only.
So Atleti tweeted a list of all of their 90-plus goals. There's 13 of them. Wow. In stoppage time alone this season. This is in all competitions. So there's a PSG one, a Leipzig one, and there's a couple against Catalonia as well. But they've scored 13 goals in stoppage time this season. Sirlot is responsible, obviously, for quite a few of them. 13 goals in stoppage time. Incredible.
Yeah, that is crazy. Just to go back quickly on your point about big squads and using rotation, I think there's 2 things that I've seen that are quite interesting on that. I can't remember who it was. It was I think it might have been quite random. I think it might have been Rodri saying that he'd said this to Fede Valverde, that he wasn't going to have a holiday till 2027 because of how the international calendar works as well. And just the amount of football that these top level players are playing. And it does feel like we are seeing, particularly in the Premier League this year, the benefit of having a large squad. Like Liverpool for so long felt like they'd almost overstocked their amount of forwards, but they've managed to, despite having missed Jota for most of the season, it feels like they've got so many options in attack. Whereas a side like Arsenal, who are having, by comparison to recent seasons, a really difficult season, it feels like their lack of depth in midfield and attack is really hamstringing them. So it does feel like Atleti have built this squad really effectively to go deep in a number of different competitions. What is quite interesting, I think, is going forward, they were really struggling early doors in the Champions League. They lost their second and third games versus Benfica and Lille, but they've now won 3 straight games in the Champions League against PSG, Sparta Prague and Slovan Bratislava. In that time, they've scored 11 and conceded 2 in that run. And they've got a very good chance of qualifying automatically for the last 16. So they host Bayer Leverkusen next week in what is going to be a really fascinating game. Then they travel to RB Salzburg, who have been really terrible the following week. And they are currently on 12 points. And only 2 sides in the competition, Liverpool on 18 and Barcelona with 15 as we record this, have more than 13. So there are so many teams that are around 13 to 11. So Atleti have a very decent chance of qualifying automatically for the last 16.
4 points there, win and a draw, and they're probably in.
For sure. But if they don't, then you're looking at another round of fixtures in February, March time to get into the last 16, which could affect their long-term form in La Liga. But I suppose that's where we should maybe go next, Sam, is, we've seen some amazing Atleti teams in the last, 10, 11 years. Where does this one sort of stand?
Well, I mean, we're halfway through, so it's very hard to crown them.
Sure.
But I found it very interesting that Simeone clearly sees something and he believes in this team in a way that he clearly hasn't over the last couple of years. Because when talking about the team's performance against Barcelona, and we've established on this pod that let's be honest, they were like pretty lucky to win that game.
Sure.
But in Simeone's point of view, they hung on for dear life. They defended with grit, and they nicked it at the end. It was a perfect day. And he referenced the old Atleti team at the end of this game. So in the press conference, he said, "We were able to compete in the best way, in his opinion, and fundamentally what the club has left in terms of legacy of Gavi, Godin and Juanfran is left to Koke and DePaul." I was like, he's name dropped the actual modern legends, the fabric of Atletico's like recent history. Gabi, Godin, Juanfran, and a few others, Felipe Luis, Diego Costa, those guys. But these are the three gods. And he's kind of pointing us in the direction here where he's saying that Koke and DePaul have finally picked up that torch, have finally become those players, those standard bearers. And I think it's particularly interesting that he name checks DePaul because it has felt
a bit harsh on Koke. He's been doing this for years.
Well, he's just lost his place in the side to Pablo Barrios, mate.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's his legacy now. It's like, oh, well done, you got there. Now you're out.
No, you're out. The DePaul thing is interesting, man, because it has felt like Simeone has wanted to throttle that man for the last 2 years. But it is now starting to come to fruition. And there's been a couple of goals he scored recently, like just beauties from the edge of the box. It's really starting to take on that responsibility, and maybe the focus on his nightlife and his girlfriends has lessened a little bit for all the right reasons. But Simeone loves this team, you can tell. And I can't help but love what they've put together. And Atleti are so naturally that easy team to root for if you're a neutral in the context of a La Liga title race. Because even though they are no like wretched underdog here in terms of financial terms, they're still operating at less than half of Real Madrid's salary limit and financial capacity. And they're operating at 75% of Barca's salary limit. So they're still financial underdogs. They're still like very clearly the third most capable team in this league, according to the finances. So you still have to box a bit clever. You still have to be quite clever with it. And I think they've built a team that can win the league. I genuinely do. I sat here and thought no chance for Atalanta. I think Atletico can do this.
I think they can as well. I think they can. I don't know whether they necessarily will.
I think they will.
Do you think they will?
I think they will, yeah. That's my prediction. I think they will. I think
Love
they'll do
that.
it.
A bold prediction to kick off the truth.
In the 5x5, Jack, at the start of the season, I think we both basically agreed that Atletico are going to finish first or third. There was no second place about it.
Yeah.
This either works or it really doesn't. Mm-hmm. And I was more leaning towards no. But everything I see here, I'm starting to think yes.
I think there's a lot of reasons to get behind that as well. The rejuvenation in some key players' form, I think, is crucial to that as well. I mentioned at the top, Jan Oblak having some slightly difficult seasons, maybe since winning the league, where he was absolutely amazing. He's been brilliant this year. I think in a year where there's been very few outstanding goalkeepers in Europe's top 5 leagues, I would say this season.
Agreed. There's a bit of a void, isn't there? Because Alisson's injured, Neuer's somewhere, and therefore like it's quite tough to put, and Courtois injured, so it's quite tough to put your finger on who's the best
for sure.
Obviously,
and like even like
but
not elite goalkeepers that have had great seasons in the past, like Jan Sommer was amazing. Was it last year? Jan Sommer was amazing. Hasn't been as good this year. Emi Martinez has been a little bit up and down.
Mike
David
Maignan,
Raya, players like that. So Jan Oblak's got a very good claim for being best goalkeeper in Europe so far this year. Marcus Llorente was phenomenal in their title-winning campaign. 23 league goals and assists, but he only contributed 11 goals and assists in his next 59. But this year, 3 goals and 6 assists in 17 league and Champions League games, particularly effective in the Champions League. I think he's been awesome. And then having Jimenez fit at the back just makes such a big difference as well. Like for so long, they've been kind of muddling through with, I would describe as fairly average centre-backs, like Hermoso. No offence to these guys. Hermoso, Savic, Felipe. I don't think they're really top-level defenders. Jimenez at his best is right up there in Europe. He's like a top 10 maybe. So he's been absolutely crucial. He's their third most used player this season. And you've got to be rooting for Griezmann to get his first league title of his career. Absolutely crazy that he missed out on that one. He's never been at Barcelona at the right time. He's never been at Atleti at the right time. And last year was a great goal scoring year for him. He got 16 league goals. And that was because they didn't have the 9s that they do this year. That was his most since 2017-18. But this year he's been awesome creatively as well. 0.3 expected assists per 90. That's the second best tally of his career. That's only topped by 8 players in Spain. But as you say, he is the sort of player that you could almost play in 6 or 7 different positions in this Atleti team, and he'd give you an 8 out of 10 every single time. He is a remarkable footballer, and I'd love him to get the crowning glory of his club career.
Is it time for the Ballon d'Or for Griezmann? I've been banging this drum for so long. But honestly, there are not many players on the planet right now that I would have in my team ahead of Antoine Griezmann. The man, even when he doesn't have good games, which is rare, right? It is very, very rare. He works like a dog. And I've been banging this kind of drum in terms of France and Deschamps, and you look at it and you think about what's happened in recent months and with the French national team and all of these things, and Griezmann's retirement. If I was Deschamps, I'd be like, I've just backed the wrong horse here. I've given the captaincy for the wrong man here. Yeah. It just feels like, you look at a player like Griezmann, and I think that in absentia, he's almost loved more. And you see the French fans now speaking about him, and they're like, yeah, we didn't give him enough love when he was here. He is just an incredible footballer. I adore Antoine Griezmann.
I feel like the French often feel like that. I feel like they often go, oh, we gave him a rough ride. Yeah. It's happened to a few players, I think. I'm just going to add a little bit more meat onto the bone of my they will do it shout, because I think what I produced initially was a bit too vibes-based. Obviously, they've conceded just 12 goals in the league this season, so they are back on their bullshit. They are very, very difficult to score against. Oblak is playing very well, but he is not like going supersonic. So it's not a case of a defence leaking chances and relying on a goalkeeper. It's a very good defence who have not only the best goals conceded record in the league, but the best expected goals against record in the league too. So the underlying numbers back their claim, and they have an informed goalkeeper when they absolutely need it. And they've shown in the last couple of months that if they need to, they can absolutely dismantle a team, which is really, really important. It's a massive part of a title-chasing team and their prospects, because you need to have that kind of flat-track bully gene in you so that you can actually just rack up those points. And you can't afford to start drawing 2-2 with Leganés. And you can't do this. You can't drop those points if you want to keep up with Barca and you want to keep up with Madrid. Atleti, 13 wins in a row, a couple of 5-0s and 6-0s mapped in there. They are showing me that they can win dirty, they can hold tight, but they can also, when it's needed, they can destroy a team, dismantle it, and push up that goal difference as well. So that's great for confidence. So I think there's quite a lot of reasons to be quite excited here. I was surprised that I felt this way on reflection, but I think they're all playing with a smile on their face. I sit there with a smile on my face watching them, and I think they can do it.
It does look like a very happy squad, doesn't it, as well? And it's not just the sort of gritty, we're not going to give you an inch football that we saw in the first few years of the Simeone reign. Like, Simeone has been on a bit of an evolution as a coach, and his standing should reflect that as well. Like, he's built multiple teams now at Atleti with, as you say, huge financial disadvantages and punched above his weight and the club's weight for so long. Like, people forget that before Simeone at Atleti were very mere side. They were outside the top four consistently. They hadn't really done anything for a long time. There was nothing really to shout about. He has put them to the forefront of Spanish football, at times European football, and I just hope that I don't really care what they do in the Champions League this year. I want this to be a really good La Liga title race, and it looks like it's going to, because Real Madrid have really started to click in the last few weeks as well. Bellingham's on an amazing tear. Mbappe, as we were talking about in the Mbappe podcast, looks so much more settled as well. Barcelona will surely not continue at the current rate that they're on. They will surely pick up as some injuries come back. This could be an all-time classic title race at a time where only potentially Serie A looks particularly enticing at the moment.
Agreed, yeah. I just want to leave us on one final thought. I'm looking at the 4-4-2 that Simeone deployed in 2014 at the Camp Nou. They drew 1-1 with Barca and they won the La Liga title as a result. And it was Costa and David Villa up front. Beautiful.
What a duo.
Iconic.
Beautiful combination. Gabi and Thiago in the centre, with a proper winger on the right in Arda Turan and a tucking in midfielder on the left in Koke. Then you've got your brilliant fullbacks, Juan Fran and Felipe Luis, and you've got your hard as nails centre-backs in Miranda and Godin, with Courtois in goal. If you think about the current Atletico team, and you just start to map those names out across that old skeleton system and that old team, and you replace the inverting left mid Koke with Conor Gallagher, and you say that Pablo Barrios is now Gabi and Thiago is actually Koke or Rodrigo de Paul, and on the right, Arda Turan, he becomes Julian Simeone, Juan Fran, Marcos Llorente. You see where I'm going with this. Jimenez, Lenormand are Godin and Miranda. It's got so many echoes of this old team, and as much as they've evolved and as much as they've changed, it's also pretty damn similar. And there's no reason why this can't work again. I love this current cast of players. I love the old cast, and I can see how I can see how the current cast can really emulate the 2014 lot.
I think the only thing that's more special about the 13-14 team is like Real Madrid and Barcelona were in a particularly good moment at that time. Whereas now,
Messi was there,
Messi was there, Ronaldo was there, obviously. And whereas Barcelona have been through so many financial issues, so many changes of coach, they're basically relying on a bunch of teenagers effectively and some very high quality plus 30-year-olds, whatever. And Real Madrid have had this huge change with Mbappe as well. It doesn't feel like Real Madrid and Barcelona are at that level this season. And look, the first time you do it is always the most special. But doing it this year would still be an amazing achievement given the turnover at Atleti. You know, that team had been settled for quite a while. Yeah. Atleti changed a lot of key parts this summer.
They did. Absolutely. Fair point. Right. Any closing remarks, Jack?
No, nothing too pressing. I'm kind of with you in that.
We didn't actually get your official prediction.
Well, at the start of the season, I was with you in that I felt like it was probably going to be first or third, but I wasn't completely sure if it was going to click or not. And I think we did go third. I have since changed my mind on that in the same way that you have. And I think that Barcelona's drop-off, one of those things that you said there that I thought was interesting is that Barcelona will get better. And I was like, will they? Because there does feel like, and I think that Barcelona will look at this season and think cup competitions could be king for us in this season, because I don't think that they have the consistency over the rest of this campaign in order to keep pace with the other two. What I do think is that on their day, they might be better than almost anybody. And that gives them a shot at not just the Copa del Rey, but I think also the Champions League. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops and where their priority list lies. But yeah, I'm with you in that I think that Atleti feel, and this is a weird one, they feel like the most stable team in Spain.
Which is mad.
Which is absolutely mad, considering this is a Cholo Simeone side.
Yeah.
But they do. They feel more settled in defence than Real Madrid. They feel more settled in attack than Barcelona. And the midfield, as you point out, Sam, feels like it has a really good balance. And the depth options in almost every position feel like they're able to step up and make a difference in a way that I think Real Madrid and Barcelona fall down in different areas of the pitch, but that's where we're kind of at. And I do find it interesting. Look, Real Madrid might go on an absolutely unholy tear in the back half of the season. We've seen it before, and it wouldn't shock me again if they went and did that. But I think if Atleti keep plugging away, they're going to be there or thereabouts. And as it comes into those final couple of games, do you back a Simeone side? Is he going to start making them call each other champions again at the training ground until they get over the line? Like, I don't think it's ridiculous. Just I think that right now, if I had to put money on it, I'd back Atleti.
Yes, me too. It's a perfect place to end. Okay, we'll call it a day there for this week. A lovely first episode of the year.
Very good.
Doogie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. I enjoyed it.
Jack, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. Always a pleasure.
And to the listener, thank you very much. Pleasure to have you with us. Pleasure to be talking Atletico Madrid, and we'll see you next week.
Latte, anyone? We all have those little everyday expenses, right? But what if you could get something really valuable for the cost of your daily coffee? Greenlight's Money app for families helps teach your kids about money, savings, chores, and allowance, even investing, starting at just $5.99 a month. That's even cheaper than coffee these days. Energize your whole family with a subscription that unlocks lifelong money lessons. Try Greenlight risk-free at greenlight.com/podcast. That's greenlight.com/podcast to try Greenlight today.